So this just broke. Well, he claims and he just announced that there is a complete ceasefire between the United States and Iran.
What now?
Well, this is just sad on every level. This is the Telegraph. Look, I don't know if this is true or not. Explosions have been heard over Doha, Qatar, after Iran launched a missile attack on the US base there. Western officials told Axios that Iran had fired 6 missiles toward at least one US base in that Gulf country. That base exists to protect Israel, by the way. I know Barry Weiss is constantly attacking Qatar. Qatar has done more to defend Israel. But anyway.
Well, as you just heard from Tucker Carlson there, Iran has begun its retaliation against the United States following President Donald Trump's decision to fight Israel's war by bombing Iran's nuclear sites over the weekend. However, the way in which Iran carried out this retaliation is important because it appears that they're attempting to de-escalate and hopefully things do de-escalate. Now, how does that make any sense at all? Well, let me give you the details on what they targeted, which US bases they targeted and how they did it. So war has entered a new stage, writes Ken Klippenstein over at Substack, with Iran and the United States now shooting at each other directly. Iran has announced that it has fired missiles at the Central Command headquarters at the Al Adid air base in Qatar. But this could be a way of giving, parties to this war a potential exit plan or exit strategy. Iran coordinated, let me repeat, Iran coordinated the attacks on the American air base in Qatar with Qatari officials and gave advance notice that attacks were coming to minimize casualties, according to 3 Iranian officials familiar with the plan. Now, that ended up being true because of the air bases that were targeted by Iran. Not a single casualty was reported. This was coordinated to prevent casualties from occurring, but this was a way of the Iranian regime to essentially save face with the people of Iran and at least show that they responded or retaliated in some way following the US attack on their soil over the weekend. Now, there was a response from Trump over this. In just a second, I'll read you what he had to say, but Cenk, what do you think?
Okay, so this is potentially really good news and the only way out of a potential significant war here, okay? Because Iran did this with Israel the first time Israel attacked. And so unfortunately that attempt to de-escalate was not returned, right, in kind. So we're gonna get to what could trigger a larger war. But what Iran is doing is they're saying, hey, we're sending missiles your way. You can easily knock them down. We're gonna tell our domestic audience we were tough against America and we bombed their base in Qatar, knowing that the missiles have no chance of landing, right? But you guys, we're telling you ahead of time, we're not actually trying to hurt you, okay? So now.
Okay, yeah. That also kind of needs to be discussed, Cenk. Okay, because this isn't the first time that Iran has responded in a way that was obviously meant to save face with their people while preventing, mass casualties or any casualties at all. It's amazing to me. Look, I am not in any way providing cover for Iran, the mullahs. I'm not religious at all, right? And I don't agree with religious fundamentalism at all. I don't agree with the Shia leadership in Iran at all. However, I don't want to get dragged into a war, much like we were with Iraq. At the same time, if you're comparing the conduct that's been carried out by 2 different parties here, Israel, especially when it comes to their conduct in the West Bank and Gaza, and then Iran and how they're responding to these attacks. I mean, the gaslighting's driving me crazy because we're acting as if, who we're allied with, Israel, oh, well, they're angels. They're totally angels and they follow international laws. They're not doing anything wrong. Iran's the one that gets bombed. Their embassy in Syria gets bombed by the Israelis. How did they respond to that? They waited a few days and then their retaliatory attack was very similar to this. In 72 hours, we're gonna start doing drone strikes. We're gonna start doing missile strikes. Here's where we're gonna do it. So you guys can shoot them down. America, you can shoot them down. Jordan, you can shoot them down. We don't want any casualties. Why are we acting like, one party is like just polite little angels who have done everything right and followed every rule, and Iran is like the dangerous regime that they're gonna do suicide bombings. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
It's so frustrating. It's frustrating. That's not providing cover for Iran, by the way. The way that they treat their people. The people of Iran absolutely want regime change. They don't want Israel to do regime change on their behalf, though.
Yeah, so look, obviously I'm agreeing. And by the way, to your point, Anna, I've now listened to a bunch of mainstream media reports today, and it's amazing, just straight reporters. Every fourth line is some sort of filler propaganda for Israel. So like, they'll tell you a fact, and Noam Chomsky told me about this in one of my interviews. He's like, just listen for the facts. Everything else is just framing in an attempt to manipulate you. So they'll say like, oh, Iran fired some missiles, but they gave earlier warning, but it is so that nobody will get hurt. Basically, they don't say so nobody will get hurt. They'll say, oh, fired some missiles, but we did have some warning. But remember, they're a terrorist state that are very violent, and it's a good thing that Israel took out their capabilities that were threatening the entire region, etc. I'm like, wait, why is this in a straight news report? I don't understand. Why are you just putting in propaganda in the middle of your so-called news? Anyways, so now, guys, the next question is, how do we respond? So Iran is basically saying we want to de-escalate, even though you messed us up, and we don't know how bad those facilities are damaged yet. We'll get to that story in a little bit, but even now, we're saying, okay, very light response. So if our response back to that is, okay, good, let's get the hell out of here. I can't believe that didn't start a giant war. Thank God that they didn't do much of a response. Great, we said we'd destroy their nuclear facilities. We did, we're out. By the way, if Trump did that, then all of MAGA would be like, told you. It was just a bombing, it was no big deal, etc. But Israel's never satisfied.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, they're not gonna say, oh, it's okay. You helped us do our fake reason for going in.
Exactly.
No, we want regime change.
Exactly.
So I don't care that their response was light. Provoke a bigger response and provoke something larger and larger and larger until we do regime change.
100%.
Okay, now you have look, guys, the beauty of this is that we tell you what's gonna happen before it happens.
Exactly.
We told you that this wasn't about the nukes. They don't even have nukes. We told you that they would try regime change. And guess what? Trump over the weekend instantly changes the goalposts to regime change. So we're all gonna see with our own eyes. Are we gonna get out, or are we gonna go further in because we haven't finished the job for Israel yet?
So let's talk a little bit about what happened after the announcement that Iran was gonna do these strikes on US air bases in Qatar. So American air defenses in Qatar were able to intercept 13 Iranian missiles that President Trump said were knocked down in Monday's attack, because obviously Iran gave them prior warning. The intention was to have them struck down. One other missile was allowed to land harmlessly. And again, there have been no casualties. I'm very, very happy to hear that there are no casualties. The fact that we have over tens of thousands, actually 40,000 US troops in the region who are essentially under threat now because of this escalation really does upset and infuriate me, but luckily so far no casualties as a result of Iran's retaliation. Now Trump has responded to this already, writing on Truth Social that Iran has officially responded to our obliteration of their nuclear facilities with a very weak response, which we expected and have very effectively countered. There have been 14 missiles, blah, 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 blah. But the important part is that he says at the end, perhaps Iran can now proceed to peace and harmony in the region, and I will enthusiastically encourage Israel to do the same. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, will he be able to encourage Israel to do the same? I doubt it. He'll be reminded about who his funders are. He'll be reminded about his mommy, okay, and the Adelsons giving him hundreds of millions of dollars to essentially allow Israel to do what it wants, carte blanche when it comes to annexing the West Bank. We're just gonna have to wait and see. And the other thing is, guys, obviously the way that the strikes against Iran were carried out over the weekend leaves much to be desired when it comes to trusting Trump. How are you gonna trust Trump, right? I mean, he just flat out lied and made it appear as though he was pursuing a diplomatic negotiation to get a new nuclear deal signed. In the meantime, he had already decided that he was gonna do these strikes. He had no intention of getting them to sign a new deal.
Yeah, I can't believe it, but even Alex Jones said that. He said, well, if you're in the middle of negotiating peace and then you betray that, that's saying to the world leaders that you don't mean anything you say. I mean, that is super ironic coming from Alex Jones, but yeah, we keep saying, oh, come to the peace table. The Iranians over the weekend said, what peace table? You blew up the peace table and you murdered our lead negotiator. So where would we go and with whom? And that is a super fair point. And by the way, as Israel loves, they're saying it all over television now, and every liar, cable news host, pundit, reporter is repeating it. Israel has a right to defend itself. Israel wasn't attacked. Iran was attacked, right? And have you heard a single person in American media even ask the question, wait, does Iran have a right to defend itself? Or is this just propaganda? Like it has nothing to do with principles, it has nothing to do with international law. It's just them bad guys. We hate them. They can't do anything. We can defend ourselves by attacking them first. Like words don't matter anymore. Logic doesn't matter, nothing matters. All you have is wall-to-wall propaganda. Okay, now let's talk about some next scenarios. So this is a very light, weak response. I'm thrilled with it for the same reason, Anna, is I don't want any of our troops hurt. I hope that this wraps it up. But very likely it will not. Why? Because Israel will be greatly encouraged by this, what they perceive to be weakness. So they're like, oh, you let us know ahead of time that you were gonna bomb us. We think you're weak. Then we'll murder more of your officials until we get regime change. And so it is possible though. So there's one other possibility. What were you gonna say?
I just want to comment on that real quick. If they think Iran is so weak, and I'm seeing the same thing, right? They're bragging about it. Okay, then you really have no justification to drag the United States into a full-blown war with Iran, correct?
Exactly, yeah, 100%. So if this is all Iran has, then we have no excuse, none to go further, but Israel will demand that we go further, and we will go further. So that you could write down in stone, okay? So now, what might Iran be up to otherwise? It is also possible, it's a lower percentage chance, but possible, that they're using this as a decoy. Oh, look, a light response. And then they go and actually do a surprise attack on another base or in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the Strait of Hormuz we're gonna talk more about later because it affects oil prices. But for now, I do wanna say, we do have destroyers and an aircraft carrier in the region. If they if they close off the Strait of Hormuz, not only will oil prices skyrocket, but then any ships left on the side of the Persian Gulf are sitting ducks and can't leave. So, because they'll be mining the Strait of Hormuz if they do that. And that could be a disaster. We'll come back to that as well.
So this just broke, and I want to mention it because it's relevant to this conversation. But again, I go back to the same issue of, can I trust Trump considering what just happened? Well, he claims, and he just announced that there is a complete ceasefire between the United States and Iran.
Interesting.
Right, so let me just read you verbatim what he posted. Here's the complete post. So congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions, I should say, for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful. This sounds like a lot of cope and wishful thinking, I'm gonna be honest with you, but I hope it's true, I really do. Let me read the rest. On the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will, I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't and never will. God bless Israel, God bless Iran, God bless the Middle East, God bless the United States of America, and God bless the world. That's the full post. Again, it's hard to trust him given the fact that he lied to our faces about pursuing diplomacy when he was actually planning for the opposite. But I really, really hope this is true. I just don't know.
Yeah, so look, we're live on the air and you heard what I just said a minute ago. So I said if he can manage to get out of this, MAGA will be ecstatic and say, see what he told you, it wasn't a war. Although, by the way, he just said it's a war. A 12-day war, even if that holds, is a war. He's calling it a war, okay? So All right, now, is it going to hold? I'd be shocked, but I'd love to be shocked. So our job is to deliver facts to you guys. So if it holds, we'll come back and say it held. I didn't like the bombing. It risked a giant war, but hey, they got out of it and they didn't do regime change, and it wasn't good on any count. But I'm thrilled that it ended. Right?
Can I ask you something?
But my guess is Netanyahu's going to go in there and poke the hornet's nest and poke it and poke it and poke it until he gets what he wants.
Right, because again, just to reiterate, regime change is what Netanyahu has been wanting for literally decades. That's the real purpose for this war. Now, this is the question I have, and I'm gonna just admit that I'm ignorant on this because I don't know if this makes any sense or if this is how ceasefires are usually done. So as Trump put it, the ceasefire would begin with Iran stopping, and then after that, Israel would stop. Wouldn't it make sense for them to both stop bombing each other?
No, it's an asinine comment, of course. Like, I don't want, you're right not to breeze past it. What he's saying is, Iran, you'll stop now. We'll keep bombing you for another 12 to 24 hours. And you'll just have to sit there and take it like a schmuck. But at the end of that 24 hours, we promise that we'll stop bombing you, wink, except we've lied every single time. The Israelis lied when they said they weren't gonna do it. Then the Americans lied when we said we weren't gonna do it. And we already murdered your lead negotiator. But yeah, if you wanna believe us, sure. We're gonna bomb you for another 24 hours. We'll probably bomb the living crap out of you, and you better not do anything. And at the end, we'll be done. Even if that's true, that's already monstrous and terrible, etc. But I would take it, right? But if in 24 hours they murder the Ayatollah and go for regime change, that's not a ceasefire. Okay, so let's see what happens. We're now, the whole world is watching for these 24 hours.
Yeah, and guys, look, I want the people of Iran to have the leadership that they deserve. And I know the majority of Iranians are not happy with the leadership. They don't like the mullahs, they don't like the religious fundamentalism in Iran. However, right now, if you're paying close attention, it's very clear that the United States and Israel are trying to install the Shah, who's exiled for torturing his own people. Like, he was exiled for a reason. The idea that Iranians would like to replace one regime that they don't like with another regime that they wouldn't like is crazy. Allow them to choose their own leaders. They should have a democratic process to choose who they want to lead them.
Yeah, so guys, last two things on this. Number one on that, look, I don't even want to talk about regime change and what the Iranian people want in this context. Because once you start talking about it in this context, it feeds into the Israeli propaganda about how we should do regime change through war. So if the Iranian people have an uprising a couple of years later, 6 months later, whenever they want against that repressive regime, fantastic. But it shouldn't be at the point of a spear, at the point of a gun, and it shouldn't be orchestrated by Israel, because even if it was, then it would lose all credibility.
Preach.
Right, and then nobody in Iran would support it because they'd be like, oh, that's the Israelis trying to foist some loser, pathetic leader on us so they can boss them around after they've gotten their regime change, right? So, okay, and then the last thing is, do not root to be right. Root for the right result, okay? So we think that the much bigger war is more likely to happen, but I hope to God we're wrong, and I'm rooting for me to be wrong, and I'm rooting for it to be over in 24 hours. Yes, we have 40,000 troops in the Middle East in bases. They're obviously a little protected, as we saw in Qatar, but they're nowhere near as protected as Israel is because they don't have Iron Dome. I don't want any of them getting hurt, and I hate war, and I want to get out of it as quickly as possible. Even if it was the wrong thing to do, and we'll never be able to convince people again that it was the wrong thing to do, or some people that it was the wrong thing to do, I would still rather have it be over. Let's root for it to be over in 24 hours, even though we think it's probably less likely. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets its wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.